To him the god, a famous naiad dwelt among the Hamadryads, on the cold Arcadian summit Nonacris, whose name was Syrinx. Often she escaped the gods, that wandered in the groves of sylvan shades, and often fled from satyrs that pursued. Vowing virginity, in all pursuits she strove to emulate Diana's ways, and as that graceful goddess wears her robe, so Syrinx girded hers that one might well believe Diana there. Even though her bow were made of horn, Diana's wrought of gold, vet might she well deceive. Now chanced it Pan, whose head was girt with prickly pines, espied the nymph returning from the Lycian hill, and these words uttered he, but Mercury refrained from further speech, and Pan's appeal remains untold. If he had told it all, the tale of Syrinx would have followed thus, but she despised the prayers of Pan, and fled through the pathless wilds until she had arrived the placid Ladon's sandy stream, whose waves prevented her escape. There she implored her sister nymphs to change her form, and Pan, believing he had caught her, held instead some marsh reeds for the body of the nymph, and while he sighed, the moving winds began to utter plaintive music in the reeds, so sweet and voice-like that poor Pan exclaimed, "Forever this discovery shall remain a sweet communion, binding thee to me." And this explains why reeds of different length, when joined together by cementing wax, derive the name of Syrinx from the maid. Such words the bright god Mercury would say. But now perceiving Argus' eyes were dimmed in languorous doze, he hushed his voice and touched the drooping eyelids with his magic wand, compelling slumber. Then without delay he struck the sleeper with his crescent sword, where neck and head unite, and hurled his head, blood dripping, down the rocks and rugged cliff. Low lies Argus. Dark is the light of all his 100 eyes, his many-orbed lights extinguished in the universal gloom that night surrounds. But Saturn's daughter spread their glister on the feathers of her bird, emblazoning its tail with starry gems. Juno made haste, inflamed with towering rage, to vent her wrath on Io, and she raised in thought and vision of the Grecian girl a dreadful fury. Stings invisible and pitiless she planted in her breast, and drove her wandering throughout the globe. The utmost limit of her laboured way, O Nile, thou didst remain, which, having reached and placed her tired knees on that river's edge, she laid her there, and as she raised her neck, looked upward to the stars, and groaned and wept, and mournfully bellowed, trying thus to plead, by all the means she had, that Jupiter might end her miseries. Repentant Jove embraced his consort, and entreated her to end the punishment. "Fear not," he said, "for she shall trouble thee no more." He spoke, and called on bitter Styx to hear his oath. And now imperial Juno, pacified, permitted Io to resume her form. At once the hair fell from her snowy sides, the horns absorbed, her dilate orbs decreased, the opening of her jaws contracted, hands appeared and shoulders, and each transformed hoof became 5 nails. And every mark or form that gave the semblance of a heifer changed, except her fair white skin, and the glad nymph was raised erect and stood upon her feet. But long the very thought of speech, that she might bellow as a heifer, filled her mind with terror, till the words so long, forgot for some sufficient cause, were tried once more,